Hello, this is Tondalea, the Commercial Realtor TC. I have years of experience in retail leasing, and over the pandemic time frame, I've reached out to clients just to check and see if they're okay, if there are any questions that I can answer for them. But the biggest question I seem to get is, what do I say to my landlord? What are my options? So they're trying to make a decision whether they should stay or go. So I gave them a few tips that I'd like to share with you. The steps in negotiating with your landlord. First, you need to read your lease and understand what your options are because it is written out in your lease about notifications and how long they need to be notified in certain circumstances. I do understand that this pandemic is a totally circumstance that no one was prepared for. But definitely read your lease, that's key. Communication is key also. Don't sit with your head in the sand and not talk to your landlord. They need to know what's going on with you. Call your landlord and make them aware of your financial position. Ask them, can you put a couple of months of your rent at the end of the lease, which is going to extend your lease term. So you will be asked to sign an additional an amendment to your lease. Be prepared for that. But don't think that your landlord's going to agree right away because we're in the middle of a pandemic. Do understand that your landlord has rights too. Your landlord is going to ask you for your latest profit and loss statement or just 12 months of your income to see if you truly do need an extension on your lease and then forbear any rent that's due. Another thing you need to think about is you have other options. One option is you can see if you're allowed to sublease the space. So if you've decided to not reopen your business before the pandemic is completely gone and everybody can get back to normal, then you can approach your landlord and say, hey, I'm not going to be able to reopen, but I may have someone who wants to sublease the space. The landlord may go for that because that means that they're not going to miss a beat on rent. And this also helps you and it helps you get out of your lease. So depending on the remaining time left on your lease, what could happen is you can negotiate and say this person's going to take over my lease because I have 3 years left over. Your friend or the person that you're recommending do need to understand that it's not a situation that they're going to walk into and it's just going to happen for them. You do need to have an application filled out. They're going to request an application filled out, their financials, and what type of business. So they need to be prepared for that. And the landlord's going to need to approve them. So let's fast forward. Everything's been entered. The landlord said, okay, you can take over the lease. 3 months before that lease is over with, the new tenant needs to start negotiating, if not 6 months sooner. But do know that they need to renegotiate the lease. Also, keep in mind that there would be a termination fee for you because you didn't finish out your lease. It just depends on how your lease is structured and the wording that's in there. But sometimes landlords do ask for a termination fee if they let you out of your lease early and there's a sublease somewhere. So be prepared for that. Um, Let me see. Biggest thing I definitely want to point out is do not pack up and just leave and not talk to your landlord. Running away and hiding is not the answer. You're in business because you're supposed to be a responsible adult, then you should continue to act like one. Be an adult, have a conversation with your landlord. It may or may not go the way you want, but you are letting them know your situation. So do everything within your power and understand what your options are before you make a poor decision of just walking away. Because if you walk away from everything that you spent money on for this build out, say you put a new kitchen in there and you left all those appliances and you're walking away from your lease, the landlord owns all of that. That is now their property. And they can take it and do whatever they want with it and sell it for additional income, but it's not going to be enough to cover the lease. So be responsible if you have to walk away from your lease and not be able to reopen. Do understand that at this time, landlords are expecting that there are going to be some fallouts. But be the responsible adult and have a conversation with your landlord. Communication is so key. Lastly, just think if you walked away from one lease because things weren't going well and you decided you want to get back out there, that's not smart because that landlord's going to ask, have you ever owned another place? Have you been leased a retail space before? Then they're going to want that information on that space so they can follow with their landlord. One thing you need to understand, the commercial real estate world is a small world. We all know each other some shape or form. We can usually pick up the phone and say, "Have you ever heard of Tim's Shoes?" And it closed during the pandemic and left everything. More than likely, we've heard about it, and you won't be able to lease a space. So do the responsible thing. Communication is key with your landlord. Find your lease. Do what's necessary. If you don't understand what's in your lease, then consult another commercial realtor, as myself, or you can consult an attorney. But be responsible. Don't just walk away. If you'd like to hear more information or have a conversation with me, sit down and talk and see how I can be more helpful. You can reach me via social media. My Instagram and Twitter is Commercial Realtor TC, or you can reach me at Tondalea at kwcommercial.com. I work for Keller Williams Commercial in Brookhaven. Spelling of my first name is T as in Tom, O-N, D as in David, A-L-E-Y-A. And thank you for listening. This